going to look at my favorite books from term 1 in our virtual school classroom. So where we are, our school year is broken up into 2 terms, term 1 and term 2, and we're wrapping up term 1 now, getting into report cards, which is a lot of fun, and I am not saying that sarcastically. I love report card time, I love report cards. The ECE in me, that's another strength of ECEs. It's learning stories, and I just love writing learning stories, so it's a lot of fun. But anyways, I was just reflecting on the read alouds that we had used in our classroom so far this year and how they have supported us in teaching the 4 frames, which is how our curriculum is sort of organized in kindergarten, and how read alouds really lend themselves to some really rich and authentic learning experiences that help to support our young students. So I figured as I start planning out my read alouds for term 2, all the way up to the end of the school year, I do a little reflection on what we've read so far. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first book we're going to look at is Terry Fox and Me by Mary Beth Leatherdale and Milan Pavlovic. And this book is about the Canadian hero, Terry Fox. I don't know, maybe if you're not from Canada, you don't know who Terry Fox is, but in Canada, school children learn about Terry Fox every fall, and we have a Terry Fox Run. It is an event where we raise money for cancer research and also to raise awareness of cancer, and as a memorial to Terry Fox and to all of those who have been lost to cancer or who have overcome cancer. This book is beautifully illustrated, so if you want to sell me on a book, it's all about the illustrations. This book is gorgeous. So it does a great job of telling the story of Terry Fox and doing it in a way where children can connect with the emotions that the character goes through in the story. But what I especially love is the use of color in the artist's illustration in this. So here we have the beginning of the story. It almost looks like a little sunrise there coming up, and then we have an excellent use of color here in this book. And then we come to a scene where Terry Fox has found out that he has a rare form of cancer and that he will be losing his leg. Now Terry plays a lot of sports, so that is obviously a really horrible piece of news for Terry, but I love the way that they use the purple tones and the muted tones on this page. If you're using this book with older students, it would really lend itself to some interesting art lessons and discussion about using color to help to support and tell a story. So I think that's really interesting how the colors are kind of used throughout the book in order to support the story. We come to a page here where Terry has had his leg amputated and he's with his pal there, and they're happy and having a good time, and I think his hope has been restored. They're using yellow then on this page to kind of represent that. At least that's what I'm thinking maybe the illustrator was trying to do there, and I just think it looks really nice and it's really special, and I think it adds another layer of what you could discuss with students when looking at this book. I think that this book could definitely be used with students from kindergarten all the way up through older grades as a really accessible story to learn about Terry Fox. At the back of the book, we have some photographs as well. There's a timeline and additional information, a lot of good extra stuff for the older students to explore as well. This book is really great. Of course, the story of Terry Fox is great for talking about perseverance and determination and overcoming the odds and doing what others might think is impossible. Loved reading this book with the kids. It's really important as a Canadian educator to bring in Canadian history and culture and stories, and Terry Fox is one of those quintessential Canadian stories that you just explore in your classroom. It's such an important part of what we do. So big thumbs up for Terry Fox and Me. Definitely check this book out. All right, our second book that we're going to look at is The Name Jar. This is a must-have for any primary classroom. Love this book. I will be using this book every year. So The Name Jar is by Yang Suk Choi, and it is published by Dragonfly Books. Yang Suk Choi is a Korean author, and the story is about a Korean girl who comes over to the United States to live. And at the beginning of the story, she is taunted by some children on the school bus because of her name. So when she comes into her school to meet her classmates, she does not feel ready or comfortable to share her name with them because she has already had bad experience with how people are reacting to her unusual name. So in the story, the character sort of goes through a journey of recognizing and accepting her identity and developing a positive sense of self. So at the beginning, we really see her hating her name and asking to change her name and to get an American name so that others will accept her. She gets suggestions for names in the name jar. So we really see this character go through this difficult experience, and it was great even with kindergartners. They're able to kind of look at how that character feels and consider how they would feel and how they would react if they were in that situation. Towards the end of the story, we do end up seeing the character accept her name. There's a twist. You'll just have to read the book and find out what happens there. But it has a beautiful ending, and it really opens up a lot of interesting conversations about identity and heritage and culture and our names, understanding ourselves. So our final task with this book was create a picture with their name in bubble letters, and we showed them how to make bubble letters, and they added pictures and decorations and colors that represented their identity, their heritage, and who they are as a person. So it was a great way to start off the year with sort of thinking about who you are and why you are special and important. So it's really neat to see the students adding pictures of their family, their pets, their hobbies, favorite foods, the flag of the country that their family is originally from, whatever represents their heritage. It was a really lovely book that we could really get a lot out of as a class. So if you teach primary, and I bet older grades would love this book as well, the Name Jar is a must-have book. All right, number 3, I actually just used this book recently in our classroom, and it is by Danielle Daniel, who is a Métis author, and the book is called Sometimes I Feel Like a Fox. I always go on about illustrations, and this book is beautiful. It is absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. It is a joy to look. I love just full page illustrations like that, and the students love them because they can really see the pictures. You have the text on one side and then the image on the other side, and it was just a beautiful book to read. And we touched a little bit on the matter in the back of the book, so talking about the Anishinaabe traditions and what animal totems are and how that's connected with the story. This is another beautiful image too. With our students, we talked about positive character traits and how we can relate those positive character traits to animals that remind us of ourselves, or that sometimes that we feel like in different activities. So we kind of compared how we're behaving while we're playing to when we're in school. And it might be something, I think one student wrote something along the lines of, in school, I am an elephant because I work hard and never forget. And then they said when they're playing, when I play, I am like a monkey because I'm silly and having fun. And it was just really cool to relate the animals to those positive character traits. We will probably, be revisiting this book again in June when we get into our Indigenous cultures sort of big celebration of learning there at the end of the year. So that'll be really interesting to revisit and learn more about totem animals and Anishinaabe culture. This is a book that you could definitely use with older grades as well, not just kindergarten. I think that there's a lot that you can get out of this book in terms of finding positive character traits that you believe you hold. And again, with some students, right, they might have issues with self-esteem or self-image. So these books that touch on self-image, I think, are so important, and a book like this can really help students build positive vocabulary in relation to themselves. Okay, this is the one that, if you follow me on Instagram, I have posted twice now on my Instagram timeline. Another beautiful story by Jacqueline Woodson and Rafael Lopez. All the books that I've read that I am showing you today There are YouTube versions as well, so if you want to do a pre-read before you purchase the book, or if you want to share it virtually with families, anything like that, you can definitely find a YouTube version of the book. Okay, so this one is called The Day You Begin, and look at that cover. Like, if any book is going to draw you in just with the cover, it's this one. What a beautifully illustrated cover. So this book begins with, there will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you. And then it goes through the story of a girl and some other children as well, who are in situations where no one is like them. For example, we have a student whose lunch is like no other lunch in their school. We have a student who had their vacation wasn't like anyone else's. We have a student who feels that they cannot play with the other children. But at the end, when you accept yourself and you're willing to accept others as friends, we can take joy in how no one is like us and how we meet people who are just as unique as we are. And again, beautiful illustrations. So yes, I have a lot of sticky notes on here. We stopped at different parts of the book, so we read it in chunks before reading the book in its entirety, and we sort of dissected little parts of the books and did drawing and written responses to each part of the book, and talking about how we have or have not experienced the same things as these characters. And if you have not experienced what this character is experiencing, how do you think they are feeling, and how would you feel if you were in that situation? We also talked about how if you notice someone was left out or seemed to be feeling left out, how could you reach out to that person and make them feel a little bit better? Another great book for the beginning of the year, because you're getting into self-image, but also that piece where we are being a good friend and we are welcoming others into the room and into our class. Okay, change of scenery. We have time traveled. It is a different day. I ran out of lights the other day when I was filming, so I'm finishing this video now. So the fifth book that I wanted to look at, the last book I wanted to look at today with you, is actually my favorite book from term one. I love this book. I am so happy that I picked it up. It is called When We Were Alone by David A. Robertson and Julie Flett. It is the story of a young girl talking to her grandmother in her garden, and her grandmother tells her the story of when she went to residential school, and it touches on the quiet moments in which she was able to share with her family or her friends, and how those quiet moments brought her peace when she was going through this difficult experience. So if you are not Canadian, maybe you don't know, Orange Shirt Day is a day where we recognize the survivors and those that we had lost to the residential school system here in Canada. It is a heavy topic, and I had seen on some of the Facebook groups that some people were saying things like, you're a bad person if you introduce young children to sad topics, or kindergartners are not capable of understanding a topic this complicated, or we should protect them from sad things and only tell them about the happy things in life. And I can understand why someone might think that, but these are stories about children their age, and these are stories about things that actually happened, and these are stories that are a part of all of our history, and they impact us all. So I think that we would be doing our students a disservice by hiding truth from them and by hiding reality from them as well. I believe that sharing this information with students empowers them and allows them to reflect upon their place in society and how they can have a positive impact through choices that they make. So when reading this book, we talked a bit about things that are important to us, things that we enjoy, and what our family means to us. And we talked a little bit about how we would feel if those things were taken away from us by someone else. And we talked about how We would never want to make someone feel that way by taking away the things that they care about. We did touch on the concept of the residential school system in a way that was developmentally appropriate for young children, and this book was great for facilitating that discussion. So as I come to the end of my 5 favorite books from term 1, that's what I kind of wanted to get at, was what is the purpose of read-alouds in our classrooms? So I believe that read-alouds can be fun, and read-alouds can be a time filler. Read-alouds can make kids laugh, and those things are great. Sometimes you just need to fill a few minutes before the bus comes, or sometimes you just need to laugh or to be silly. What's that book called? Walter the Farting Dog. If you want a silly book to read, that's a good one. But books can also empower, and books can introduce difficult concepts in a way that is attainable and relatable for young children. So by using read-alouds in our classroom, we can introduce concepts in a way that can engage and help to involve all of our learners. So in the Ontario Kindergarten program, our curriculum is divided up into the 4 frames, which I'm going to name them, and I remember them right now only because I'm doing report cards, but they are belonging and contributing, problem solving and innovating, oh hi Gertrude, mathematics and literacy behavior, and then what was the 4th one? And self-regulation and well-being. I believe that through the use of read-alouds, you can definitely touch on all of your curriculum expectations. You need to take the time before a term starts or before a month starts to sit down and look at the expectations that you have. And I highly suggest, you can see my dog's ear, mapping out read-alouds that would touch on and introduce that topic to your students. Read-alouds are great for students. They love looking at pictures. Most children love listening to stories, and by using a read-aloud book to introduce a topic, I think that you are, oh my gosh, my dog is being super cute right now. You are making the content accessible for all, which I think is really important, because you can sit there and think that a child is not capable of being introduced to the concept of residential schools, but when you have a read-aloud which they can connect to on an emotional level, maybe not right away, but maybe with additional discussions and prompts. So with read-alouds, I feel like we're empowering our students and we're empowering ourselves to be able to look at our curriculum expectations in a completely different way. These 5 books influenced journal responses, drawing activities, oral discussions, different activities that we were then able to use in the classroom that not only touched on frames such as belonging and contributing and self-regulation and well-being, but also got in those mathematics and literacy behaviors expectations as well. So something to think about as you head into your next term or your next month or your next school year is think about how read-alouds can positively impact the planning and the teaching that you're doing. All right, enough of me rambling about how much I love books and am obsessed with illustrations. Let me know in the comment box down below, what was your favorite read-aloud that you used in your classroom in the past term, or maybe it was in the past school year, or maybe you can let me know what read-aloud you are looking forward to in the next term or school year. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful weekday or weekend or whatever, wherever you are. Bye.